Welcome to the Power of Diverse Stories, Conversations with Documentarians, a creators talk event from StoryHive. My name is Sabrina Rani Furminger. I am your host for this conversation, and I am humbled to speak with you from the unceded and traditional territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam First Nations. Before I introduce you to our incredible panelists, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I host and executive produce the YVR Screen Scene podcast, a twice weekly podcast that features in-depth conversations with the actors, filmmakers, and other talented artists who power the Vancouver film and television industry. Tomorrow, I am releasing my 198th episode. So yes, I love podcasting. Today, we celebrate the truth tellers among us, documentary filmmakers who have stepped up to tell stories that have long gone untold. Stories about Black dancers, stories about Filipino caregivers, stories about Punjabi pioneers. These documentaries have all succeeded in opening hearts and minds and eyes, and I expect we will have a similar experience over the course of our conversations today. If you have comments or questions, please drop them into the Q&A function, and I'll ask as many as I can towards the end. Please keep it respectful. Also, I should add that one of our filmmakers, Sunny Sidhu, who was the force behind Punjabi Pioneers of Alberta, is not yet with us and might not be able to join us due to some incredibly inclement weather and icy roads in Alberta. But if Sunny's able to join us, Sunny will join us. But now, without further ado, sure. I introduce you to the bonkers talented humans behind two documentaries that were funded through StoryHive's documentary edition. Simone Blais, director and producer of Dance Like Everybody's Watching, and Kent Donguines, the filmmaker of Kalinga Care. Simone, Kent, welcome to this Creator Talk.
Thank you so much for having me here.
It's great to be here.
So I'm going to ask each of you to first tell me a little bit. Now, I'll admit I have watched both of your films, but for everybody who's watching who has not yet watched your films, please tell us about what your film is all about. Simone, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I directed and produced the film Dance Like Everybody's Watching. So it's a StoryHive funded film, and it follows the lives of three Black dancers in the city of Victoria. And so really the documentary explores themes of cultural appropriation, racism, tokenism in the dance community here locally. And so, yeah, it was a joy to make, and I'm excited to share a little bit about my journey creating it today.
Well, I am excited to ask you so many questions. What about you, Kent? What can you tell us about Kalinga Care?
Yeah, so sorry, Kalinga is a short documentary also funded by StoryHive, also with the support of Creative BC and the National Screen Institute of Canada. It follows the story of Filipino caregivers and nannies here in Vancouver, and features a lot of their stories, sacrifices, and struggles when they moved here, but also helping me heal from my previous experience as a son of a nanny. That really opened my eyes and my heart and appreciation to these people.
Well, I mean, you've already kind of led into my first question, so let's continue for you to answer that, Kent. Let's talk about what began you on your journey with this documentary, and also why was the documentary genre the best one through which to tell your story?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not a documentary filmmaker. Like my film career didn't start in documentaries. But then I was introduced to it when I started working for a production company here in Vancouver as a production manager, where they specialize in documentaries. And that's what pretty much to pursue documentary filmmaking. And how, yeah, how the film, I guess, started. Um, it was really about my personal curiosity, and also my, I guess, the emotions behind my experience with my mom becoming a nanny when I was 6 years old. During that time, she left me at the age of 6 with my sister, who was also 3 years old, younger sister who was 3 months old back then. And yeah, when this opportunity came up, I wanted to tell something that's, very authentic, but at the same time, I was really hoping to finally put some closure to my experience and really understand what my mom have gone through in the past. And yeah, and when we started making it, I realized that I wasn't alone. Like, this is a type of problem that, that exists like in so many levels within the Filipino culture, especially Filipino mothers who move from one country to another to take care of other families rather than um, taking care of their own.
That is so fascinating. Simone, I'm wondering if you see any of your own stories, any similarities in what Kent has described. Specifically in finding community through the telling of the story.
Yeah, that was beautiful, Ken. I'm like gonna watch your documentary later today. Um, yeah, so similar to Ken, I before this film was not a filmmaker. Like, don't ask me to take a picture of you on your phone. I'll take a terrible photo. Like, I can't. Like, I had no sort of familiarity with like film or anything like that. But I grew up as a dancer myself. So when I was young, I started out doing Irish dance competitively, and so started out like in a cultural dance, and did that for many years. And then I did and still do today Métis jigging as well, connecting with my mom's culture, and I'm also have always really loved Black dance styles, so Afro beats, different styles like that. And so I moved here in to the West Coast in 2014 from Toronto, and so I was really witnessing like almost having like a culture shock around dance, where I was looking for dance spaces that resonated with me, that didn't feel like appropriation, that felt like a space where I could just be, and had like a really rich context for, what it means to be somebody who's Black in a lot of different cultural dance spaces. Um, and I just found a lot of the conversations that were happening in like popular media around like cultural appropriation and who can and can't wear what hairstyles and who can and can't wear what costumes on Halloween. I was seeing a lot of those conversations being represented in like this microcosm in the Victoria dance community. But I didn't really find that anybody was talking about it. And so I had, yeah, just like a little seed of an idea for many years. I wanted to explore this topic of cultural appropriation in dance. And I chose to create a documentary because I just thought it would make it the most widely accessible. I think I was also finishing my degree at UVic at the time. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll make a giant, research paper. And honestly, who reads those? I was like, I want this to go somewhere. I want people to be able to quickly, consume it and think about it. And so, yeah, I really was not a documentary filmmaker or anything like that, but I just felt like the story kind of needed to be told.
Well, I will say that both of you are definitely and undeniably and inarguably documentary filmmakers now. One of the things that I find interesting about both of these documentaries is that you both appear in your documentaries in some way. And I mean, not all documentarians do that. And it's a very bold choice, and it requires, you to be very vulnerable as well. Kent, we're going to start with you. What informed your decision to be seen on screen in this way and to put yourself in the story in this way, or to anchor it in your own story?
Yeah. Again, like coming into this particular project, there was like the first thing in mind was really having me in it. It wasn't, it wasn't a final thought that maybe we can incorporate my story. I guess it all came down to the willingness of telling an authentic story and also showcase the honesty behind the piece. I've seen a lot of documentaries and films that revolve around caregivers, overseas Filipino workers, and I've seen some of them almost sensationalize the issue. And yeah, going back to this documentary, I wanted to incorporate my story so people can understand that as a filmmaker, I am the right person and the only person who can tell the story. That it's not something that I just brainstormed and suddenly it's here. Like, this is something that's been brewing since I was 6 years old. And that, that even if you get to a certain point of your adult life, there are still questions that remain unanswered. And it was just, this documentary helped me answer all those questions and understand even more what the industry needs and where it's going.
Okay, we are going to talk a little bit more in a few minutes about some of those lessons that you learned. What about for you?
So unlike Ken, I really didn't want to be in it at all. I wanted to kind of be behind the camera. Like I had mentioned earlier, I was as I was creating the documentary, I was still in school. I was finishing my last year, and I majored in gender studies and minored in Indigenous studies, and so was really like fresh in my mind thinking about like research ethics and like the ethics of doing research in communities. And so I think eventually it just kind of came to the place where it was like, it only makes sense for me to be in it. Because there were so many question marks around like how this story is being woven together and like, why is it being told and who's telling it? Because it's so niche and it's so specific that it almost felt like a giant question mark in the film had I not been in it and been like, this is why I'm making it. And so I really resisted it, but it came to the place in the end where it was like, also on like an ethical stance, I'm like, okay, well, I'm putting the spotlight on my community and I'm asking them to be really vulnerable and I'm asking them to tell their stories, and they're trusting me with that story to, chop up their words and overlay it with footage, and they don't know what it's going to look like. And so I felt like it was only fair as well for me to also put myself in it and make myself vulnerable, and put myself in the spotlight, to show that, I'm also not perfect and we're all on our own learning journeys. And, I'm not this sort of like objective voice, like narrator of God behind the scenes, but like I'm also implicated. And so, yeah, I resisted it for a long time, but it was kind of the only thing that made sense in the end.
I am glad that you both.
Can I just add something too?
Absolutely.
It's really great that Simone mentioned that, that I guess the duty of care when it comes to telling other people's story, because it was the same for me too. Like in the process, before we even started talking about their stories, their experiences, part of it was just me talking about why we're here, like why we're in this setting, why are we going to be talking about this? I really, we made there's no connection from the beginning, obviously, but as the filmmaker, I wanted to make sure that there is a certain level of comfort that's considered on the end of my participants, and that they should be aware that this is not just about them, and this is not just about me. Like it's us having this common ground, and finding, I guess, the common things within our stories.
Yeah. I want to go back to the experience of filming your documentaries. I'm going to throw to Simone because we've gone very one, two, so like Kent, Simone, Kent, Simone. So we're going to start with Simone this time. Can you tell me what were some of the memorable moments that you have from filming your documentary, and what made these moments so memorable for you?
There was a lot of memorable moments. I think I really wanted to make the process of creating the documentary just as important as the product. I think like we live in a culture that's very much like just do whatever you need to do to just get it done. It doesn't matter if people are stressed out, people are hungry, people are tired, like you just grind, grind, grind because you need that final product to be perfect. And I was very clear that like I didn't want to do it that way. I wanted the process to actually feel really, really good. And then if the product is good, great. And if not, we, created something new by creating the film. And so it's really interesting actually, because the three dancers that I chose to highlight, two of them had sort of met, but they had actually never all connected. So like they'd actually never sat down together because the Black communities in Victoria tend to be quite stratified. I don't know if that's the word. Sort of in different silos, like there's a lot of different pockets, but we very rarely like come all together. And so it was really cool because through the process of creating the documentary, like they actually built relationships with each other and were like, oh my gosh, that happened to you, that happened to me too, oh my gosh, and like building connections. And oh, which classes do you go to? Oh my gosh, that's where you teach. Okay, I'm gonna attend. And so I think that was really memorable, was like bringing a lot of different community members together, and they've forged relationships now that have gone even beyond the documentary. And so I'm really happy about the product, but I think like, yeah, I was always just, we always had a good line in the budget for like feeding everybody really well, and like not just pizza, and making sure we're like taking our time and everybody's like okay and things like that. And so it felt like in that way a lot of just like community. And I think that's also because I'm not a filmmaker, so I came to it from the context of like community organizing and like activism, and being like, okay, what's your dietary restrictions and things like that, where it's like that's how I know to organize. And so yeah, it was a lot of fun, and a lot of relationships were forged through it. So I think all of it was really memorable.
That's fantastic. What about for you, Kent? What were some of the memorable experiences or moments that you had making Kalinga Care?
There's two that's really, like super memorable for me. To those who've seen the film, I'm just really happy that I was able to set up a massive boodle fight with all the food, this feast, to bring everybody together. I think that was really memorable. It's something that my crew also learned about our culture, that we actually do that. We put different kinds of food in a long table and basically just talk about life and start catching up with each other. I think it was, it was also the first time for some of our participants seeing each other. And the second one, this is definitely the most memorable one. It's across the board with all my crew members as well. The documentary is mostly in Filipino. So there's already there's already a language barrier between my crew who are not Filipino and our participants. But when we were doing one of the interviews, she was speaking Tagalog, like Tita Esther was speaking Tagalog, and all we can hear was in the background, people are sniffing and crying. and we had to stop the recording because our sound guy was like, "Hey guys, we can hear you." But this is like a proof, I guess, that no matter what language you speak, but you know what this person's, like going through, and also being open and sharing everything, like it resonates. And yeah, like we took a little bit of a breath, I guess, a little bit of a break before we jumped back right into it. But it was very, very memorable because that's when it hits me that this film can definitely impact not just Filipinos but also Canadians who are outside of our community.
Yeah, you have both you have both described yourselves as not being documentary filmmakers a few times, and I've pushed back and said you are now. But what do you have plans to explore this genre further, to use documentary to tell stories that have largely gone untold? You're nodding, Kent. Let's hear from you first.
Yes, I guess I'm really fortunate that with this documentary, a lot of doors have opened for me. I now I'm embracing that I'm a documentary filmmaker. I'm writing my first feature documentary about fixing the fractured identity of a Filipino Canadian through traditional Filipino tattoos, and also that are untold. It's really because I guess just a little bit of background. Starting when I started my career here in film, I was still in that stage where I'm trying to find my purpose. Is it really worth it? What am I doing for the greater good? And when I started documentary filmmaking, that's when I found my purpose. There's only, based on my knowledge, there's only 3 Filipino Canadian documentary filmmakers in town. And we obviously have our niches in terms of stories that we tell. And I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that, unspoken, unannounced movement that somebody needs to champion Filipino Canadian stories here in the country.
Well, you and Joella and Kat are
yes,
certainly a movement.
3.
That's the 3. What about for you, Simone? Do you have any plans to tell any more stories?
I love how you know like the names like right off the top of your head. That's so West Coast, I feel. Yeah, I don't really have any plans right now. I'm a birth worker, so I'm like working full time as a doula and doing birth work and stuff right now. I'm actually still, even though we completed the film in 2020, I'm still providing like workshops with the film. So I've done probably over 30 screenings and discussions for like everything from middle schools locally to community groups, to churches, who want to have conversations about Blackness in Victoria. And so I'm still, doing like screenings, and then just we talk through like the issues. And so, I have some other things on my plate right now. I have had in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, it'd be really cool to do like a Black horror movie here on the island. It's so heavily forested in certain areas. It's like, I don't know, it would be cool. And telling the story of like BIPOC birth workers in this city would be also really cool, but nothing really in the works right now.
I want to see both of those projects. Okay, Simone, please keep in touch because I really want to support this work however I can. You actually bring up something that I wanted to talk about a bit, which was audience feedback and audience reaction and the kind of conversations that have sprung up, around your film. So let's start with you, Simone. Like, tell me about some of the audience feedback that has been the most meaningful for you. And has there been anything at all surprising in how people have responded to the film?
Yeah, it's been a real mixed bag, I have to say, especially doing so many screenings, many diverse screenings. So the first, sorry, I think you can hear the birds through the window there. Sorry. The first screening that we did was like a closed screening just for everybody who was involved. And that was really good. We got some feedback around, like, Black people are not a monolith. And so a lot of debate around like, you know, absolutely white people can teach Black dance. There's no problem with that. As opposed to, no, that's clearly cultural appropriation. And so differences within like the Black communities as well, and like conversations that I had gone in assuming that we would all think the same thing. And then of course, yeah, we're just all diverse and human. And so people have differing opinions. We did a really beautiful, because it was COVID, we did a pop-up drive-in screening. And so that was really, really fun. That was our premiere. So we actually had it in like a parking lot, and it was like your classic drive-in where people listen through the radio. And that was really, really memorable. And yeah, overall, really good feedback, diverse feedback. I think that without the discussion afterwards, I think a lot of things don't stick. I think usually, and it was always meant to be a conversation piece. So I love having a discussion afterwards, because I think when people watch it and there isn't an opportunity for discussion, I think a lot of things either go over people's head, or they just have so many questions that they don't know what to think. And so, yeah, I think that's what I'll say for that one.
Ooh, I actually have follow-up questions that I'll ask you later when we're not recording about more of that audience kind of feedback. What about for you, Kent, sharing this film? I know that it is screened all over. A lot of people have seen it. A lot of people have loved it. What has some of the audience feedback been that has really touched you or stirred you in some way?
Sabrina, before I answer your question, I just gotta say, Simone, I'm jealous that you were able to host a drive-in screening. Like, that's awesome. But for the film, I think for me, when we had our world premiere at Doxa, I was really nervous. I was really nervous because obviously this is my first, like professionally made film as a director, and also my first professionally made documentary. And then I had a thought, like, should I really look into what people has to say first, or should I go back to my participants who got to see the film for the first time? So one of the most memorable moments as part of, I guess, the audience feedback side was I learned that your participants are your biggest audience. And what really touched me after watching the film was when one of them, Tita Maria, called me and said, "Hey, Kent, thank you so much for making this film. Like, it really made me feel that, like that I finally had that closure to her experience, and that it almost served as a therapy for her, to talk about what she has gone through, and also see and learn more about the other caregivers and nannies that that she already knew, that there's actually so much more than the stories that they've shared to her. So that's one, but overall, audience feedback has been pretty good. We just did our pitch summit with Story to Action, Story Money Impact, and we were able to talk about the film. And we also tied it to our impact campaign that will hopefully, spark changes in existing policies in the Canadian government. And yeah, and it's so nice to receive, I guess, I wouldn't say pledges, but interest from different community leaders in the Filipino community who are interested to showcase the film across their platforms.
Yeah. That is huge. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I sobbed. It was crazy. I was really touched. I was like, oh my God, like this is that moment that it almost felt validating that I'm here in film for a reason.
Yeah. I don't think we've talked about challenges yet, have we? For the
No,
experience
we
of bringing
haven't.
the story. Oh, well then let us talk.
Haven't.
Let's talk about challenges. Simone, what was like the biggest challenge or some of the biggest challenges you faced bringing your documentary to the screen, and how did you overcome them?
I'm like, what do I choose? Oh, there were so many things. Yeah, I mean, COVID. So it was meant to be a feature length. And so it ended up being a 25-minute film because we just had to stop shooting midway through. And so that definitely changed things. I do see that actually as a benefit though, because now with the size, I'm able to screen it in like classrooms and then we have a discussion. And it's like that wouldn't really have been possible with an hour-long film. Like it just would have been too long. Um, it's like a job interview. I'm like turning the negative into a positive here. But yeah, I think it was challenging also just working within, like, I knew nothing about film. And so it was a really, really steep learning curve for me. And so I was lucky to be working with a production company, One Island Media, who taught me a lot. And Peruzo, who did all the cinematography, um, who also taught me a lot. But I think that it was hard to stay true to my gut instinct of like creative choices that I wanted to make because I didn't have the language to articulate it in terms of film. And I didn't know how to kind of back things up or explain choices in a way that made sense in a film context. So like I had never heard the term like B-roll before. I had never like I didn't even know. And so I think that at the beginning I made a lot of decisions and was sort of swayed by other people's opinions because I was like, okay, well, I mean, they know what they're doing, you know, they're filmmakers. I don't really know. But I think near the end, I sort of got my footing a little bit stronger and was able to, you know, pick up on the language, pick up on the formatting and of everything and say, okay, these are the choices I want to make. And this is why. But it was a very steep learning curve for sure. So yeah, a couple challenges.
Some pretty big ones that you were able to turn around. What about for you, Kent? Let's talk challenges. You seemed really
Yeah.
excited when I'm like, let's talk challenges.
Challenges. Well, first and foremost, because I'm in the material, it was hard to control, I guess, the urge of telling your story, plus more stories. So that alone creatively was a huge challenge. It was like I needed to set boundaries to a point where yeah, I can only tell this much from my perspective so I can allow my participants to actually explore and tell more about their stories. Um, Also, it is a short documentary. It's intended to be a short documentary, but we had 6 hours of footage. Yeah. So the post-production process was very, very challenging, especially for an editor. Like shout out to you, Alfred. Um, like he killed it. Like he was able to compress it to 30 minutes. But we've been getting, like we have cuts that are like over an hour. We have cuts that's 45 minutes. And when you watch the piece, like it's good, like it's solid, but at the same time you're just like, oh my God, like which of these things should I take out? Which of these things should I keep? So that was nerve-wracking because at that point it's crucial. It's you're getting to the final cut of the film, and there's just so many stories that I can add into the piece. Even one of my producers said like maybe you want to have a feature cut of this. And I'm just like, and then we're gonna have to go through all of this, like all of that shenanigans in post. So I was just like, you know what? Let's stay true to what we want to tell. Really focus on the message that we want to come across, and yeah, and then deliver what is asked.
Oh, I am so glad that we ended up getting that question in. Um, Now that you've both made the film, your films, what advice do you have for other filmmakers, especially filmmakers from marginalized communities? Simone, let's start with you.
Um, I always say the same thing, and it sounds so corny, but I'm like, just do it. Like literally just jump in. And I think like you are going to make mistakes, but whether you're a super experienced filmmaker or it's your first time, you're going to make mistakes regardless. So, yeah, just jump in, tell your story, do what you have to do, and just trust that, like it's a learning journey. You'll get there along the way. And hold true to what is like, your truth about how you want to tell the story. I think like even with after the film, I like yeah, I guess I felt, and I feel like, bad saying this, but I just felt so much pressure to like make it go like big, 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 like as big as it could go. And for me, that was never my goal. Like I always wanted to put a ton of energy into disseminating the film locally and making sure that Victoria knew about the film, because I made it for this city and I wanted this city to like be prioritized. And I felt so much pressure to like make it go like international. I know you can do both, but I felt like I had limited time. And even just little things like that, like I think now I'm really glad that I put so much effort into making sure that um it it went so many places in this city, because like people do know about it here, and like it's gone so many places locally, and that was always the priority. So yeah, long-winded way of saying like just stay true to what you know to be true and what your priorities are.
Yeah, and just do it. That's fantastic. Kent, what about you? What advice do you have?
Yeah, for me, just don't overthink it. Like what Simone has already mentioned, like stick to what you know. The next thing you know, once you're done, once you've done it, a lot of people will actually, resonate with whatever story you're trying to put together. Also, another piece of advice is that as filmmakers, if you're just starting or you're experienced, we have stories that come from here that nobody knows about, um, and it's our job to take whatever's in here and then like pick the right pieces and put them together to craft something beautiful. We're in film to tell stories, and we're not here to cure cancer. um, it's supposed to be a fun process, and everybody who wants to do film as well, it's really, like, think why you're in film and really think about the purpose and what your mission is as a filmmaker, because that's, for me, that's how I approached things when I started documentary filmmaking, and hoping to inspire and influence other people as well to do the same.
Yeah. We have a question from the audience for both of you. If you could change anything about your documentary, either the process or the outcome, etc., what would it be? If anything at all.
I can go.
Okay, Kent, go for it.
I would have loved to have my mom in it.
Mm,
Yeah, I would have loved to hear some thoughts from her. She definitely had a crazy experience as well, but obviously, because she's not based here in Canada and she's in Hong Kong, it was just logistically impossible for us during that time. Yeah, I wish I had the opportunity to um, shed some light on my mom's experience.
yeah.
That would be it.
What about for you, Simone? Is there anything that you would change about your documentary at all?
Yeah, I go back and forth on that. I think like in one way, like, no, I wouldn't change anything. I think I did the best that I could with what I had at the time, and I couldn't have done it any better with what I knew. I think looking back now, having watched it so many times, I would probably change the ending. I feel like I wrapped it up on kind of like a black girl magic, like just make space, positivity sort of note. And I kind of felt the need to put some sort of cohesive ending statement type thing. And I don't think that feels totally true to what I was feeling, but I just didn't feel super conclusive. And maybe that's just the nature of it being like an ongoing process of these conversations. But yeah, I think maybe I would have like taken a little bit more time. Again, I didn't really have much more time, but had I had more time to think of a more kind of yeah, like clear and complicated statement on my thoughts. I think I kind of like scapegoated that the answer of my question through the documentary by just being like, yeah, just make space, like kind of like catchy slogan sort of comment. But yeah.
That's a terrific answer. We have another fantastic question. This one is about inspiration. What do you look to for inspiration? Do you look to films? Do you look to art? Conversation with friends? Where? From where do you derive inspiration? Who would like to take that one first?
I can take that.
Okay.
I drive and I get a lot of inspiration just from like my daily life and just especially like for this film, like just being in dance spaces. And I think like many years ago, I decided like instead of all of my little frustrations, just like writing a like angry Facebook post or just like making an Instagram story or just, like having these tiny little outlets that like don't really go anywhere, that I would like take all of these tiny frustrations and like make something big of it, to make a bigger splash. So yeah, like when things make me like really heated throughout life or really just like angry about things, or I just feel you know I feel like there's injustice happening, I'm like, okay, I'm going to write this down. This is going to be a little piece of like a bigger project. Like this is going to make a big splash one day, because saying a little something in the moment is not really going to do much. But yeah, that's even where this documentary came from, like being in dance classes and being like really annoyed and wanting to make an angry like Facebook rant, and then being like, no, let's do something bigger.
Yeah.
So I get inspired by rage. That's my answer.
That is a fantastic anger. And I love that not only did you build something bigger, but then you actually built a community around it as well. That is terrific. What about for you, Kent? What about where do you get your inspiration? Where does it
Yeah,
come from?
me, I guess from mostly the documentary work, slowly incorporating it in fiction too. But I really get inspired by the people in my community, within the Filipino Canadian community. Like tomorrow, for example, like I have a lunch with a Filipino friend who used to be a roommate in East Van, and he just wants to talk about his experience in living in Boys Town in the Philippines. So yeah, so basically I get inspired by stories from the community that I know that's never been told. I guess I'm in a position in my career that I get to watch a lot of films, different formats, different lengths, and yeah, and it gives me, that drive to keep digging for more untold stories, because that's what I want to be like. That's what I want to become. And that's how I want to um, use my, I guess my power as a filmmaker, to be able to really dig those stories and show it to people. And that's what inspires me to keep going too.
I love that you use that power for good, and it really is. It's the artistic superpower. I mean, you both clearly have it. Thank you, audience, for those questions. I guess now is a great time where you could each let us know where we can watch your documentaries. Simone, let's start with you.
Yeah, so my documentary is available on YouTube right now. So if you just type in Dance Like Everybody's Watching, it should come up. It's also it's posted by StoryHive. So if you go to StoryHive's YouTube channel, you'll find it there. And then you can also find all of the work that I do at simone-blais.com. And I've got some more information about the film there. And you can also contact me about any requests. I do a lot of virtual and in-person screenings and discussions. So if you're interested in that, definitely drop me a line at Simone-Blais.
Where is Kalinga Care at this moment? Because I know it's been on quite a journey.
Yes, it's in the circuit still, but the documentary has been released through TELUS on demand. So if you guys are TELUS subscribers, you can check it out there. We're playing at Chilliwack Independent Film Festival. It was supposed to happen last weekend, but unfortunately, because of what happened, like the flooding far east, the festival got postponed and will resume on January. We're playing in Macau as well. I'm really, really excited because my mom's gonna be there to watch the film. And we're playing in Guangzhou as well in China. And we have upcoming screenings that are not set yet, but we're working on it. Expect screenings in Toronto and Vancouver, Edmonton, and Winnipeg as part of our impact campaign. This is also an opportunity for everyone who's going to be joining that screening to ask questions and get to know more about myself and the participants, and as well as the rest of my team.
We actually we had one more question come in, and it's a really interesting one. And I just, if before we wrap today, I would love to get to it. The question is, have you ever covered a topic that you are new to and still learning about? If so, have you been confronted by members of these topics who believe you may not be in a position deserving to tell this story? Because I know that this is a conversation that is happening right now in the documentary world, about who should and should not be, telling certain stories. And, the onus on that, I mean, that, Simone, you spoke about this too, about, the onus on the filmmaker. You as the filmmaker, about whether or not you should be telling the story, that you should be telling. Is that something, Kent, you're nodding, have you encountered that at all?
Yes, actually, I'm facing that in my feature documentary, the one that I'm writing right now. Yeah, I am Filipino Canadian, but I'm not Filipino indigenous. And the story that I'm diving into in the Philippines is based on the indigenous Filipino culture. And one of the points that was raised during the development process of the project is that, why are you the right person to tell this? Like, so many people, a lot of, I'm not gonna name any races. A lot of people who have come to that community exploited the story so many times already. And I made sure that, for me, I'm coming into this fully committed and, willing to undergo whatever process, protocol training and everything. And I even talked to a consultant who's already done a project in that community before. So yeah, you just really need to follow what is asked by the community. Learn when to listen and, learn when to speak. I think that's what's really important. You are there to tell their stories. It's an honor, it's a privilege for you to get access to those stories. And you should handle it with care, really. Be conscious about the decisions you make. Whatever you're writing, you don't want to sound like, like the tyranny of an expert, basically, especially in a documentary. If you want to talk to anthropologists, why don't you talk to the community that's still there and, get your facts straight? Yeah, so I'm glad I have, I have a script consultant, a script editor who are from the community, and I have Filipino producers as well who are coming on board to make sure that, you know, I'm not going to be committing those mistakes. And yeah, it's tough. I agree, but you know, sometimes passion and commitment can really come across.
What about you, Simone? Is this something that you've encountered?
Yeah, that's a great answer, Ken. I haven't encountered that with, I've only created the one documentary, and it was definitely very clearly like an insider story and like an insider telling the story of my own community. And I had relationships with pre-existing relationships with everybody, almost everybody in the film um, before creating it. So I didn't face any kind of pushback on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we got that question and also the other ones. Thank you to everyone who's asked a question. Thank you to everybody who watched today. Thank you, Kent Donguines and Simone Blais. I am so excited that we had the chance to really deep dive into the hows and whys of your film today. If you would like to watch this again, if you would like to tell other people about this conversation, you can catch it on TELUS Optic TV on demand and on the StoryHive Facebook page. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having us, Ken. It was lovely to meet you. I'm going to watch your film
Lovely
later.
to meet you, Simone.